Welcome in this video. This is Victor, and today I want to show you how to master any skill. We're going to be talking about the 80-20 Pareto Principle, frequency over intensity, and thinking in the long run. So let's jump right into it. The 80-20 Pareto Principle. So you probably already heard about this principle. 80% of the results come from 20% of the actions. And this is a principle that is extremely powerful when you're trying to acquire a skill, because soon you realize that 80% of your actions are actually useless or are ineffective. And in my case, I realized that recently in my experience in starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I started 2 months ago at the Renzo Gracie Academy in New York City, a very famous place where, for example, John Danaher was a student. He got his black belt there, and he later on created this John Danaher Death Squad. You had like GSP, George St. Pierre in MMA, you had Gordon Ryan, you had basically all the best guys. And what I was thinking was that in purchasing his videos online, I would accelerate tremendously my success. And I would, like, in the weekend, watch for hours course on BJJ Fanatics. I would watch, for example, one video like 4 times about the technique, and I would think that when it came time to put that into application in the mats, I would be very successful. But in reality, when it came time to apply the technique, I was completely confused. I didn't know how to apply it because I didn't drill the technique on a live opponent. That's when I realized that to master Jiu-Jitsu, nothing beats actual practice. You know, even if you watch for hours and hours and hours instructional videos should be only roughly 20% probably of your time spent in Jiu-Jitsu. 80% of your time should be in drilling and rolling with live opponents. That's when you really learn and when it really clicks the technique. And this is something that is so profound, yet so few people actually put that into practice. And I think the 80-20 split is roughly the optimal one, because I think some people, you know, they just go to the mats, they just practice in the class, but they don't reflect on what mistakes they are making or how they could improve their game. So they don't progress as fast as somebody who actually is watching the videos. And then you have the opposite guy, which is, it tends a little bit more to be like me, who spend a lot of time reading books or instructionals to learn the technique and spend not enough time on the mats. 80% action, 20% reflection. That's the split I want you to have in mind when you're learning a skill. So the second pillar is frequency over intensity. And this really clicked for me when I was watching actually a video of Firas Zahabi, the MMA coach of GSP, George St. Pierre in MMA in the UFC. And what he said was, it's better to practice every day at 67% of your strengths than to go all in like 100% and take many days of rest to recover because your muscles are so sore. You know, that made a lot of sense to me after he did the math, basically. You know, imagine you go 4 times at the gym, 1 hour each time. At the end of the year, you roughly have 200 hours of deliberate practice versus a guy who, let's say, only went 2 times, who would have only 100 hours. It's 100 hours difference over a year. You know, over the short term, there might not be crazy difference, but over the long term, the skill gap is gonna just get larger and larger between those 2 athletes. You know, I realized that also in my jiu-jitsu practice, because when I first started jiu-jitsu, I would go all in and I have to rest for many days in between. And, you know, I would not learn as fast as a person had used less force, but more technique. In today's society, I feel like people are attracted by, you know, going all in, going so hard that, you know, your body is at the fringe of breaking down. But in reality, that's not the optimal way. Going 60-70% every day is actually a better way to progress for the long run. This is a principle really of frequency over intensity. Most professors know about it. You know, students who cram the night before the exam might still get a good score, you know, at the exam, but very soon after the exams, they'll forget already everything. Versus a student who spread out their studies over months, that student will remember that material for much longer periods. So this is really so key, you know, like don't go so hard as to burn out. Just spread it out. The third pillar is thinking in the long run. So most people give up in their goals because they don't see a big improvement. You know, maybe they wanted to lose 20 pounds and they lost only 5 pounds, and they think that it's way too slow. Why bother with that goal? You know, it demands so much effort, so much mental capital. Why should they suffer so much for so little gains? And it happens because they're so close to themselves. It's like if they actually looked at themselves in gap of months or years, they will see the difference. But because they look at themselves on a day-to-day basis, it's hard to see the change. You know, that is why most people fail. It's because they're too zoomed in. It's like, imagine the treasure is like just 15 feet away or something like that. But because you're zoomed in so much on yourself, you don't even see the treasure. So you think that it's very far away and you give up, but it's actually just there. But you gave up because you're too close to yourself. And I think the best example for thinking in the long run is probably in Warren Buffett. You know, the way he proceeds is that he values a company. You know, he looks at the fundamentals. He sees that there might be a mismatch, how he values a company and how the market values a company. So if it's undervalued, he might buy the company and wait for, you know, maybe years or even decades for the price to revert. And when it reverts, he pockets his profit. But in order to do that, you need to be very patient. You need to be very confident in your analysis and wait for years for that to happen. But most people are not that patient, so they will start questioning themselves, and probably more often than not, they will give up within the first few months. And this is crazy because the treasures were so close and they didn't take advantage of that opportunity. Really, I think those three principles, three pillars, you know, the 80-20 Pareto Principle, frequency over intensity, and thinking in the long run. If you have those three principles in mind when you're trying to acquire any skill, I am pretty confident that you can achieve mastery in any skill if you keep those three principles in mind. In whatever endeavor you're trying to achieve, you know, whether it's losing weight, building your business, succeeding at school, you know, whatever it is, I hope that was useful. This video was useful for you. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and you know, watch my videos. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Peace.